You've probably heard the name Margaret Sanger, right? The so-called champion of birth control and founder of Planned Parenthood. But what if I told you she also had deep ties to eugenics and believed in controlling the Black population? Yeah, let's talk about the truth they don't teach you about Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger was a birth control activist and a nurse who founded Planned Parenthood in 1916. She pushed for women's reproductive rights and helped create the modern birth control movement. But here's where it gets messy. She was also a believer in eugenics, the racist idea that some people are unfit to reproduce. Now let's be real. Margaret Sanger wasn't just about women's rights. She was deeply involved in the eugenics movement, which aimed to control the population of undesirable groups, Black people. In her own words, she talked about the need to weed out the unfit and prevent certain groups from having children. And then there's the Negro Project, one of the biggest red flags in her legacy. In 1939, Sanger launched a campaign to promote birth control in, guess what? Black communities. On the surface, it sounded like she wanted to help, but in reality, it was about population control. She even wrote in a letter that they needed to use Black doctors and Black ministers to convince people to accept birth control. Here's a letter she wrote to Clarence Gamble of Procter & Gamble. We should hire 3 or 4 colored ministers, preferably with social services backgrounds and with engaging personalities. The most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. We don't want the word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is the man who can straighten out the idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. Let that sink in. Her own words. Now, fast forward today, and Planned Parenthood is still controversial in Black communities. 79% of Planned Parenthood clinics are located in Black neighborhoods. Black women make up 38% of all abortions, even though we're only 13% of the population. Some activists argue that this is a continuation of eugenics and population control. But here's the truth, y'all. We deserve both reproductive freedom, but we also have the right to ask hard questions about the system. So, was Margaret Sanger a women's rights hero or a racist eugenics? That's why knowing our history is critical. We can support reproductive rights while we still question the racist roots of the system. What do you think? Now, if you don't think they're sitting around plotting about you, guess what? They are. While they're celebrating her for women's rights, she was really for Black death. Drop a thumbs up in the comments if you learned something new and tag somebody who needs to know the truth that they don't teach you in schools.